Good morning, Richard. Lovely to have you with us, and lovely to have you joining the CX Retail Exchange in about a month's time. It's come around very, very quickly. So yeah, just going to ask you a few questions this morning. Just to start off with, for a little bit of an introduction, you have had a very long, illustrious and varied career. Could you provide an introduction for our viewers who may not have come across your work as yet?
Yeah, look, so let's start with the illustrious bit. That's your word, not my word. I'll leave the viewers to decide whether it's illustrious or not. It's certainly been eclectic. I think that's a great word to describe it. You know, I was super fortunate when I finished school to have a number of different options to play sport professionally, and I decided to turn pro at golf. I spent about 10 years playing as a pro golfer, partly as an elite teacher, partly as a European Tour pro. And believe me, a grounding in professional sport gives you an unbelievable perspective on the world. You know, I kind of figured out eventually that I probably wasn't going to be good enough to make it as a golf pro. I moved into business, you know, became a kind of serial entrepreneur, then discovered a love of high altitude mountaineering, then discovered that I could sort of help people understand the strategy. So yeah, very, very kind of eclectic. And now I'm a portfolio chairman working predominantly in private equity.
Okay, brilliant. I noticed on your bio that you wrote that you've lived a lot of life in your life.
Yeah,
which I really liked. It's not all about the business. It's a lot about the business, but it's good to get some other stuff in there as well, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what inspired you to start coaching and mentoring?
Yeah, so I'm not sure it was kind of inspiration. You know, as I developed my career, and I learned a lot about how to improve businesses, how to get businesses to perform better, how to develop people within organizations, how to define strategy. And you know, eventually you get to the point in your career where you're kind of like, well, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to help other people, you know, giving them part of what I've learned. Like everybody, I had you know, my bucket list of things to do, of which one was write a book. So I ended up carving out some time. I wrote the book, The Zebra Reality, and published it. And it was just, you know, amazingly successful, way more successful than I ever thought it would be. It was kind of something that I did. And, you know, so many people read the book and contacted me and said, wow, can you help me? Can you help us? And I just get so much pleasure and so much fun out of helping businesses and people develop. And, you know, the book is a kind of framework. And I think I can help people if they understand the framework, they get something out of it. So I guess the answer is I sort of fell into it from my bucket list, I think would be the best answer.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, it's nice when you have those moments. It's just a natural progression. Yeah. And was there a kind of defining moment for you in your career so far?
Yeah, defining moments. They're quite interesting, aren't they? Right. So I did a lot of high altitude mountaineering, and I went to the Himalayas to climb some really pretty big mountains out there, and you know, long 6-7 week expeditions where, like, I guess it's pretty dangerous. And everybody used to say to me when I got back, you know, what was the defining moment of the whole trip? And I used to go, I didn't really ever see a kind of defining moment. It was a set of experiences which develop you, and they all challenge you in a different way, and you kind of learn and you draw something from everything. I guess if I had a single defining moment in my career, it would be very early in my golf career when I was playing in the World Under-25s in France, in Nîmes. I'm playing alongside some really, pretty famous guys, and it was a tough tournament. I didn't do particularly well, and I came home and I reached that point in a career where you kind of go, "Am I ever really going to make this?" And I was probably 27, 28 years old, I don't know, something like that, and you know, looking in the mirror at that point and going, "Wow, I'm never really going to be good enough to make this. I need to find something else to do." And I think when you face that point where you go, actually, I'm not going to make this, it teaches you something about how you do achieve things. You know, the essence of failure, I guess, is the word, teaches you something about the reality of achievement. So if I look back now, that's my driving force, and always has been, that, you know, I never ever wanted to find myself back in that position where I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. So yeah, I guess that's a kind of defining moment.
Yeah, it's the kind of what kills you makes you stronger, isn't it? And you always learn so much more from your failures than your successes.
Yeah.
I always, when I get speakers, I'm always really keen for them to tell the failure stories, rather than what people obviously want to tell in the business world, which is about their biggest successes, which are brilliant and, you know, can be inspiring, but learning from failures, I think, is even better, really.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think, you know, lots of times it's quite difficult to face. It's quite difficult to face up to that fact, isn't it? You know, looking in the mirror and going, wow, you know, I'm not going to make it, or that wasn't good enough. And when you learn that at quite a young age, it tends to define and shape your attitude and your behavior and your characteristics going forward.
Yeah. And that leads perfectly into our next question, which is, how has your background helped harness your expertise as a resilience leader, with a reputation for bringing businesses back from the brink? A lot of B's in that sentence.
Yeah, like bringing businesses back from the brink. So it's a bit like what we've just been talking about, right? I think adversity shapes you. Right, and we all face adversity at some point in our life, in our working life, in our personal life, or whatever it is. And I think it's how you. It's not the fact that you're not going to face adversity, because you are going to face it, right? I find almost anybody not to face it at some point in their lives. I think it's how you handle it, and how you learn from it, and how you use it to shape your sort of behaviour, or your characteristics, or your approach going forwards. And I always, when people ask me this question, I tend to use a non-business analogy, right? And I'll try and relate this in simple terms. But, you know, when you're climbing at high altitude, you will climb along things that we call sort of a knife edge ridge, and it is quite simply like trying to walk on a knife edge, and down either side of that ridge, the fall could be, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 meters. And you kind of know that if you go down there, you're probably not going to get back up, right?
Yeah.
You can find a point on it. And you know, so in the daylight, when you can see, when you're confident, when you're rested, when you're well fed, when you're feeling good, usually you'll be out with other people. It'd be quite dangerous to do it on your own. You can handle that, right? Is it a challenge? Yes, it's a challenge, but you can handle it. Then you get the times when you have to do it in the middle of the night, because you've got to go for a summit, or you're trying to get down from a summit, or you're stuck in a camp and you need to move. And that is what changes the dimension of how you learn to handle adversity, because now you're on a knife edge ridge, and you know you're on a knife edge ridge, and you can't see anything because it's pitch black, and you've got a head torch on, and all you can literally see is one step in front of you. And what you have to learn at that point, you have to learn how to control the emotion in the adversity, and apply, you know, a real heavy dose of what I'd call kind of pragmatism, right? You know that if you keep taking one step in front of you, you're going to get to the end of the ridge, right? But you can't see it. It's like walking a tightrope in the middle of the night, you know, with no safety harness. So when you do that the first time, it's quite scary. After a while, you kind of build up a mental strength which allows you to handle it. And I think when you're in business, you face exactly the same thing, right? So people quite often will look at me and go, well, how did that not spook you, or how did that not knock you back when something happens? And I go, well, try walking on a knife edge ridge at 2 a.m. in the morning when you can't see one step in front of you. Mentally, you learn to control it. And that's what I think in business you have to do. You have to learn, and you have to teach yourself. And you do have to teach yourself, because it doesn't come naturally to many people. How do you control that, the mental turmoil, the emotional turmoil, and to an extent sometimes the physical turmoil of the adversity that you're going through, in whatever shape or form that it is. And that I think is it's a learned skill. It's not really a natural skill, it's a learned skill. And I think if you can do that, then it will allow you to handle really any kind of adversity that comes your way in a business environment.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that hasn't put everybody off mountain climbing.
Well, I don't think I would enjoy that experience, but yeah, I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but for some people, amazing, but it must be an incredible experience.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when a lot of the professionals that I speak to, when you think of kind of a 5-year strategy kind of thing, and it can seem like a ridiculous mission, and you're not really sure how you're going to get there, and the idea of you just need to put one foot in front of the other and then you will eventually get there. It's the compartmentalizing and understanding that if you do this, the next step is to do this, and then you carry on like that, and eventually the job gets done.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. We're going to talk about a little bit about this during my session, right? I was really lucky. When I learned how to mountaineer, I learned from a guy called Sir Chris Bonington. And Sir Chris Bonington is one of the most famous global mountaineers of all time, right? He was president of one of the businesses where I was operating at, Berghaus, and he and I spent hours together talking about the business, and he taught me how to climb. But he taught me a lot more about how you plan big expeditions and how you organize big expeditions and how you handle the challenges that a big expedition, how you manage the team, how you align your resource to get to the top, right? And sort of inadvertently, when I started to spend time thinking about that, I was like, wow, there's so many lessons there about running a business. The parallels are so similar, right? And we're going to talk about this as part of my session at the event. So I'm not going to tell everybody what the answer is, but yeah, look, there are amazing similarities between that.
And again, a perfect segue into the next question. So your session at the Exchange will explore how customer experience leaders can work to build the resilient organization of the future. Can you share a little bit about why it's important for CX leaders today to take a leading role in that resiliency?
Yeah, look, I think this is an important point to make. For me, this is not, it's a CX event, okay? So we're going to be surrounded by CX leaders. I think it's beholden on all leaders now to think very clearly about how you make your organization more resilient. How do you future-proof your organization? How do you improve the bounce back ability of the organization when it faces challenge or adversity, right? And lots of retail businesses have faced that over the last 18 months. And I think this is a really super important attribute for the leaders to have. The reason I think it's so important for CX leaders in the organization is almost every retail business, certainly in the UK, if not globally right now, is looking to use its customer relationship, its customer engagement, its customer experience as a point of differentiation, okay? And that won't be understood necessarily by the rest of the organization. They understand the principle of customer experience or customer engagement is a differentiator. What they don't necessarily instinctively understand is how do you create that in the organization, right? So in all of the work I've done and all the work I do in the strategy and the organizational development aspect of it is about building this resilience and building a sense of alignment of an organization so it can achieve its goals and objectives. And I think that's going to be even more important over the next 2 to 3 years, because organizations are going to have to shift, and they're going to have to shift quicker than they've ever shifted before, right? And if the CX leaders are not able to articulate why there is a requirement for the organization to change, and help the organization see how you create the alignment that you need to create the differentiation, then I fear there'll be lots of organizations with great strategic plans which will suboptimize the outcome.
Yeah, definitely. And leading on from that, obviously retail specifically have been through a massive extended period of disruption, and it's a changing industry. In your view, where does the retail industry go from here to create exceptional experiences and keep their customers going forward?
Yeah, so look, I think it's interesting, and I was having this discussion a couple of days ago with a company that I work with, and they were asking me almost exactly the same question. And I said, look, the world's changed, right? And it's not going to change back. Okay, and the sooner everybody kind of gets their head around that, I think broadly speaking, people kind of now understand it's not going to change back. But the interesting challenge that we face right now is we can't predict where this change is going to end. Okay, like we'll all have a subjective view of where we think it's going to end, but none of us could really define it. So the one thing that I think will be consistent is that consumption will remain. So we're not facing a point where maybe like we did in kind of 2007, where consumption was really going to drop, significantly because of the economic problems of the world. The governments, certainly the Western governments, the developed country governments have plowed so much money, so much capital into the economies that they're going to survive. There's going to be an issue about how do you reconcile that level of kind of sovereign debt, but we'll piece that together. So consumption is not going to suddenly collapse. So consumption will remain at a relatively high level. What I think is the type and profile of consumption is going to change. So what I see happening, what I saw happening for the 5 or 10 years before the pandemic broke, was we were seeing a shift from consumption to experience, but that shift was relatively measured, and organizations were able to adapt to the change. What I think the last 18 months has done is it's massively overweighted experience versus consumption. Okay. And you allied to that, people's lives have changed in a way that none of us could have imagined 18 months ago. We're working from home is with us. It's not going to go away. All businesses will find the right level of where they adapt to. But that change in the work-life balance, I mean, arguably we're working harder now because we're working from home, because we're doing less commuting, but it's giving us time to do lots of other things, which is where I think experience comes out. And what I think retailers have got to do is they've got to try and figure out how do they balance consumption and experience, and then deliver really true engagement for their customers. Because if you can balance that, then I think you can find a point of real differentiation. I think you can make massive strides forwards over the next 2 to 3 years. I think if you're not able to do that, then I think that they will be the organizations that will struggle.
And obviously we're very excited for the event next month. We're going to have a lot of retail leaders with us at the exchange. What do you personally seek to get out of these types of gatherings?
I think it's great that we can get back and meet in person, right? I mean, like everybody, I've done loads and loads and loads of these kind of events on Teams or on Zoom.
Same.
And it's okay. Look, it's okay. It was better than nothing, wasn't it? But what you miss is that that personal interaction, that personal engagement, that kind of one-to-one conversation, that opportunity to hear somebody speak and then go up to them and say, hey, I have a question, what about this or what about that? And I think what the in-person network will give us, it'll give us that opportunity to exactly that, network and to talk. I think whenever you go to these kind of events, you always come away with some you know, nuggets of wisdom. It always refreshes stuff that you used to do that maybe you aren't doing any longer. You meet interesting people, you hear about other experiences. I mean, you know, I don't think you can go to an event like this without walking away, you know, stronger and better and more capable than you walked in, right? By definition, you're going to. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to being in a room full of people. You know, I do quite a lot of presenting like this, and I've had enough of doing it on Teams. So I'm really looking forward to getting on a stage and talking to people again. It will be great. It'll be fabulous.
Yeah, it's going to be really brilliant. I think it's our first event back.
Yeah.
So we're all really excited. We want to make sure it's as good an on-site experience and as safe, but as brilliant an on-site experience as we can. And as you say, I mean, virtual events have been brilliant. I'm extremely thankful that they've been around, but nothing beats on-site.
Nothing beats being in person, does it? Right? I mean, you know, that ability to have a coffee and stand next to somebody and go, hey, what do you think about? And you know, you strike up a conversation, and you know, I think it's massively valuable.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what can attendees expect from your session at the exchange?
Okay, I'm a man of few words. They'll get a challenge because I spend a lot of time going into businesses and looking at underperforming businesses and helping them to move forwards. And I think challenge is the start point of all of that. So everybody who's going to come and who's going to listen, yeah, there'll be some challenge. There'll be some structure, because I think that if you're going to challenge the organization, I don't mean me challenge them, I mean them go back and challenge their organization, you also need a structure to manage that challenge through. So hopefully I can give people a structure. I'd like to think they'll get some inspiration. Just being in a room and hearing people talk on a stage should be inspiring, and hopefully I can be. And I think they'll walk away with a bunch of ideas, and they can pick and choose, right? You know, my ideas won't work for everybody, but I think the importance of a day like this is you kind of listen to a lot of ideas and thoughts from different people, and then you sift out what you think is the important bit for your organization, and you take it back, and hopefully, you know, there are one or there are two just pearls that make a difference, you know.
100%. And I definitely think that, you know, we're going to have a wide variety of companies and to a certain extent job titles as well. And it is about those nuggets of information. You might listen to something that at the beginning you don't think is directly relevant to you, and then you might come away and think that was amazing. It's made me think about something in a completely different way. And yeah, change your outlook and take something back to the office that you didn't think you were going to get out of the event, which is always really nice to see, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm super excited to do it.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant to hear. We're really excited to have you. So yeah, thank you so much, Richard. It's been really lovely to speak to you. Yeah, the event is not far away now, which is very exciting. Yeah, really looking forward to meeting you and to having your session. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see everybody on the 18th. Looking forward to it.